back to another AMI commuting video. Today I'm going to answer some of your most common questions, and most of them revolve around insurance. Let's get going, shall we? It's a positively balmy 3 degrees this morning, so yeah, little windscreen heater is going to be working quite hard today to both keep that clear and hopefully maybe add a little touch of warmth. Really too hopeful. I know it does take the edge off a little bit, but it really is only there to clear the windscreen. Let's talk about insurance then. Quite a lot of people ask me, who insures it? I'm struggling to get quotes. Lots of companies tell me they've never heard of it, I can't insure it. And the next one is always, how much do you pay for your insurance? And we'll cover both of those questions, although I think one of them has much more value than the other. So, who insures it then? So the problem you have with AMI is, not only is it a bit weird, it's a quadricycle, it's something that some insurers just have no real knowledge of. But the bigger problem is, it's a brand new model. There are hardly any of them on the roads. And the underwriters haven't quite worked out how to risk weight it yet. And they're getting there, but it takes a little bit of time. So what you find is that there are some mainstream insurers where you apply for a quote and they say, well, no, I've never heard of it, I don't know what it is. It's not on our database, we can't do anything for you. And I think that was definitely more of an issue when I was trying to get insurance. And I think that as time goes on and more deliveries are carried out, that will get a little bit easier. So I think it's something you'll need to worry about less and less. But if you are looking for quotes, the insurers I know of at the moment that are happy to deal with AMI, know what it is and can quote fairly are Citroen Insurance, Citroen's own insurance, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. Direct Line, who obviously, very big, well-known name, they seem on board with AMI. Churchill as well, and then EUI, who own Admiral and all the other brands that sit under that sort of umbrella. So you've got Elephant, Bell, there's a few others as well. In fact, there's loads of them, there's more of them than you'd ever realise. All of those insurers I mentioned will more than happily quote for AMI, and as far as I can tell, are quoting relatively reasonably for it. Citroen Insurance, the reason I mentioned them first is that when you buy AMI, they will offer you 7 days free insurance. And that's actually a really, really good way to make things really easy. So you call them up once you have your registration number and your delivery date, which obviously Citroen UK provides you with. You call them up and you say, well, I've just bought a car and I need the 7 days insurance, you give me the details, all that stuff. And so they sort out a cover note for you, which if you're picking it up from the dealership, they'll send it direct to the dealership. And if you get delivered, they'll send it to Citroen UK so they know you've got insurance and everything's all good. So they're not handing over a car to someone that hasn't insured it. That's particularly prominent if you have finance on the car. There's a condition of the finance that needs to be insured at all times. So they will insist you provide insurance at that handover for mostly for that reason. And so that means you don't need to worry. So you take delivery and then you can sort out insurance in those 7 days. And that's exactly what I did. Citroen Insurance will then provide you with a quote. It wasn't like a million miles away from me. For me, I think it was maybe about 20% more than what I'm paying. And that will vary wildly in terms of your different circumstances. Now, they were offering like a free dash cam if you took a policy with them and stuff. And I saw a couple of people on one of the AMI Facebook groups saying that swayed them because the difference in price wasn't very much, and then they were giving you, something for free to sort of sweeten the deal. So it looks like that's a pretty decent option for a lot of people. And then the other insurers I've mentioned, one of those is one of the ones I use. It'll just depend solely on your personal circumstances, what they're going to quote you and whether they're going to be happy to deal with you. And that sort of brings me to the next point, which is everybody asks, how much do you pay for your insurance? And I see people post this on the Facebook groups all the time, and it's a constant question people ask in my comments, how much is your insurance? Because I've had this quote, and I want to know if that's fair. Well, it is completely irrelevant what I pay for insurance, because insurance is solely based on factors like your age, where you live, your driving history, all that stuff, all those questions they ask you when you're taking out insurance, every single one of them has an impact on your premium. Don't get me wrong, I'm not sticking up for insurance companies here. I honestly, wholeheartedly believe they use a random number generator. I don't believe there's that much real-world logic goes into it at all. But you comparing your premium to mine or to someone else's really isn't going to get you anywhere. So whatever they quoted you, probably what you need to think about is, well, is that acceptable for you to pay for insurance? No, but that's only you can make that decision. And how does that compare to other vehicles that you have? Now, obviously, you're going to want to be a little bit careful, because I've heard people say, like, oh, the quote they've given me is astronomical. I can insure my classic XYZ for a lot less than that. And yeah, I've got a Fiat Panda 30 sat in the unit, broken, like most things. And it's on a classic policy, and it costs me half of what I pay for insurance for this. But the thing about classic cars is nobody's expecting you to typically use them in rush hour traffic, and more accidents happen at rush hour than at any other time of day. Statistically, that is very true. And everybody's rushing to get to where they're going, and yeah, you might be moving very slowly, but everybody's a bit head up and a bit pissed off, and it does happen. Cars come together a bit more than you might otherwise expect, and so they price that in. A car that, you know, is usually going to be used at rush hour, or for big commutes, or, you know, when you get like sports cars and stuff for showing off, they cost a little bit more to insure. And I think that its appeal for the city and its appeal for commuting is probably what goes against AMI a little bit with insurance. That being said, because the classic car market is very, very unique. So people buy classic cars, they cherish them, they only take them out when it's dry and all that stuff, and that means insurance is very cheap. Very low mileage vehicles that are cherished, and people look after them. So more back into the mainstream, where we can compare mainstream policies, which is that I think is important. And so my Kangoo ZE costs 25% more to insure than AMI. So, you know, it's a low value, older electric vehicle. It's only worth about 3 or 4 grand. It's probably worth about half what AMI's worth, even with the current sort of crazy market conditions for used EVs. And it does cost about 25% more for this roughly similar policy, actually, similar kind of annual mileage. Yes, it's a van. You might pay a little bit more for a van than a car, but it does show that it is, you know, for a fairly similar policy, it is more expensive. And then my other car, which I used to call my daily driver, but I guess AMI's my daily driver now, and I use it primarily for the sort of long distance stuff. So when I go to my other job now and again, which is hundreds of miles away, it's an Audi A8. It's a 2006, but it's fairly worthless. But obviously, it was quite a premium car when it was new, and it was probably sits in quite a high insurance group, and it is double what AMI is for the policy. And then, all right, that's for a little bit more mileage and stuff, but not that much more, and it is double. So I think it shows that actually, for me, you know, I'm fairly happy with what I'm paying for this. The rates, I think, is reasonable enough. Yes, it could be cheaper, but I mean, car insurance could always be cheaper. Nobody likes paying for car insurance. So it turns out I've been waxing on about insurance for long enough that I'm here already. Working 8 till 5 today, so hopefully it won't be as dark and I won't be as angry as I was last time. But we'll see how that goes. And I will see you in a few hours for the homeward journey, where I'll talk about something other than insurance, maybe. That was another pretty long and difficult shift, but at least the weather was on my side this time. It stayed a lot drier than the last time. As you'll probably be able to hear, I've got the heating running again, a little bit steamed up in here again. I guess it's a constant battle with AMI, I think. It doesn't help that I really do need to get round to testing the anti-fog products. I said in the last video I was looking at doing that, haven't got round to it. I've got a load of stuff sitting on the shelf waiting to be tested, but we're not quite there yet. I think that would make a significant difference to how steamed up it gets. I hear a lot of people saying they really like Fog X, so I'm going to try some of the more weird and wonderful things, but I think I've got some Fog X. I'm going to use it on some of the windows to see how the gold standard holds up. So another update on UK deliveries then. You know, I quite like to keep an eye on people getting their AMIs by means of, you know, the various Facebook groups, and sometimes see people posting on Twitter and stuff as well. And there's definitely more out there. There's more arriving. Currently now seeing people taking delivery of their Vibe model, which obviously is going to be quite a rarity indeed, because they discontinued them before deliveries actually started. So people that got their orders in early, like me, managed to order a Vibe, but then they've discontinued it in favour of the Tonic. So I do think they're going to become rare little not cars indeed. It does seem that they are now slowly being delivered. Until recently, I'd only seen people getting the Pop or indeed the sort of basic AMI like this one. So yeah, it's good to see that the whole model range is now being delivered. I'm not sure on numbers. I'm seeing I'm mixed because I'm seeing some people saying, "Oh, it's great, Miami's finally arrived," and I'm definitely seeing, a lot more people saying that than we were, which is really good progress. But I'm also seeing the odd person saying, "Oh, well, I've been told that there's a delay that they weren't expecting, and it's going to be a little bit longer still," and so that's not so good. But I know that Citroen UK are working very hard to overcome some of these logistical challenges, but it does seem that some people are getting kind of let down at the last minute too. They're being told that the delivery is finally going to happen, and then it's being postponed again for whatever reason. So that's not so good. But hopefully more and more people will receive some good news very shortly, because I'm looking forward to as many of you getting your vehicles as possible. And this is a rumour, this is not any official standing whatsoever, but what I've heard was Citroen are aiming to deliver 500 in the UK by the end of this year. And if that's true, that's actually more than I was expecting. I know that at some point they had a couple of thousand reservations, but I don't know how many will definitely have converted into orders. And to deliver 500 cars in this sort of initial wave sounds ambitious, and hopefully that is what's going to happen. It'll be really interesting to see once we can get maybe some of the registration figures. So how many left tracks, probably for the classic car scene, tracks how many of a given vehicle is still registered, still taxed, still on the roads, using data from the DVLA, and that gets updated quarterly from data that the government provides via DVLA. And at some point, we should be able to see, the Q4 numbers for the Citroen Ami, and we should be able to see that, there are so many of them, and it'll be quite easy to spot them, because although there's the old classic Ami, they're not electric, right? So with a fuel type of electric and the name Citroen Ami, we should be able to see them appear on how many left. And that will be reflective of the DVLA numbers. So hopefully we'll be able to see that how many have been delivered once we can get access to that data. So it takes a little bit of time for DVLA to update that information. So it'll probably be early next year before we'll be able to see the sort of fourth quarter numbers. But it'll be quite interesting to see what that looks like. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting in terms of numbers, but I think to hear that it's, hundreds, possibly thousands that are being sold, I think that's a really good thing indeed. I don't know if you'll notice on the audio, because this filters out quite a lot of the drivetrain noise. I'll maybe try and get it from the camera. But I've noticed just a little bit of an odd noise, either when I'm sort of taking up the drive, so crawling away from a standstill, or slowing down quite dramatically using the regenerative braking. Just a little bit more noise from the drivetrain than there used to be. And it sounds like a little bit sort of high-pitched, sort of squealy in nature. A little bit like a fan belt does when it's slipping, like the alternator belt on a car when it slips. It makes that kind of noise. Now, it's nowhere near as bad as that, but it's just the start of that kind of noise. It makes me a little bit worried that we might have the drive belt not quite tensioned properly. So the Ami uses a drive belt as part of its drivetrain for the motor to transfer the power. And so if that starts slipping, that could be bad news indeed. But yeah, I don't quite know what this noise is that I can hear, but it doesn't sound good. I'm starting to think I might need to contact the dealer and see if we can get it booked in and get it looked at, because I mean I could whip the front panel off and have a look at the belt myself, but I know there's a lot of you out there that are not scared of doing stuff like that. Normally I'm not either, but this is a brand new vehicle with a warranty, so I'm a little bit hesitant of getting stuck into the mechanicals myself. And normally with older stuff I wouldn't really think twice about it, but because this does have a warranty, I am feeling like it might need to go back to Citroen for some attention, because it just doesn't seem right at all. Don't think we're down on power or anything. It certainly seems to drive just like it always has. But just that little bit of noise, and it just makes me a little bit on edge, and think it's probably worth checking out. So keep your eyes out for it's having to go back to the dealer video fairly shortly. Let me know in the comments if you've got your AMI, if you noticed anything odd like that. You know, there's probably some of you doing more miles in yours now than I am. We've only got 287 on the clock now as I drive at the moment. A couple higher than that by the time I get home, but I wouldn't expect to have any issues this early. I'm sure some of you will be like, well, you know, I would expect you to have issues every day. It's, you know, it's French and all that, but I don't even know if there's been any reports of drive belt issues from any of the French cars that have also been on the road for a little bit longer. I know some of you follow the goings on in France very closely, so let me know if you've heard anything involving the drive belt at all. I'd be interested to hear. See, you know, any belt-driven system it might need adjustment at some point. I just wouldn't expect it to be quite so soon. But I'd be really interested if anybody's either having an issue or knows of an issue with vehicles in France or Italy or any of the other markets where AMI's been available for a bit longer. I'd definitely be interested to hear about it, because I definitely think something's not quite right. It's so hard to pick it out in the audio. I don't think I'll be able to show you what it sounds like, but there's definitely just a little bit more noise than there was before, and that therefore can't be right, can it? And neither of the press cars that I drove in Coventry were making this noise either. So even the French registered one that I took on the road when I was in Coventry was actually, you know, a fair bit older, and it had quite a few kilometres on the clock, and it didn't have noises like that coming from its drivetrain. So it'll be quite interesting, I think, to see what the dealer makes of it. I think it's the right thing to do. I don't think it doesn't put me off. It doesn't make me think, oh, I need to get rid of it. I mean, people are selling these, actually. I saw someone that took delivery of it and put it up for sale pretty much straight away. And they are selling it for like £1,500 more than they paid for it. I'm sure some other wannabe Mike Brewers have got the same idea. So I'm sure that, you know, belt squeal aside, I could make some money if I really wanted to, but I just love it too much. It's not happening. But so even if you are going to offer me some silly amount of money for it, I'm afraid it is not for sale. Not at the moment, at least. One careful owner. Excellent mechanically, as you would expect from the age and mileage. I definitely need to work on lighting. The last time I had a little video light on the phone holder, which was helping a little bit because it's really dark, but we'll go with this little torch. These torches are really good, by the way. To do the crap QVC thing again, because in the last video I was struggling a lot to see people's door numbers and stuff like that when it's dark. Someone suggested that if you get a decently bright torch and roll the window down and shine out the window at someone's house to try and see the number. And so I went on Amazon. I got 2 of these torches with rechargeable batteries for less than 20 quid. It was £19, something like that, for 2 really quite bright LED torches. I'm quite happy with that. There's a link in the description if you want one. Check it out. But anyway, that was another AMI Commutes. And I think we finally put the insurance question to bed, don't you? Hopefully that gives you all the information you need to answer the questions you might have about insuring one of these. And if you need to work out how much it's going to cost, you just need to go to some of those insurers that I mentioned and get some quotes. I will keep you updated on the progress with the noise from the drivetrain. I think it probably is going to be going into Citroen, so keep an eye out for a, oh my god, my AMI's going back to the dealership video coming soon. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.